Judging Freedom channel with Judge Napolitano, Judge Andrew Napolitano, Judging Freedom channel on YouTube, because this is regarding, for example, I'm not leaving out. Kids are going to do things wrong, and adults are going to do things wrong. Where and how they're prevented, short words properly, and that is three ways, and they're prevented all three of those ways properly. Where the use of the right to lie is used where they don't have the right to lie, and where they're lying about where they're in the furtherance of uses of the right to be with the elements, poisons, drugs, medicines, even rights to child abuses, to pretend it's legitimate undercover. So Connecticut News Media has at the corner of Church Street and Main Street in Old Wethersfield, for example, a whole bunch of people involved with the Morrow families. Between grammar schools, public, middle school, high school, consciously stacking fake ties between kids, fake natures of ties, kids to fake locations, fake ties to other people, fake natures, fake things in databases. Then and now we have sense and sensibilities that are reliant upon faith in investigations, investigators, intelligence communities, including judges, prosecutors, everyone's standing at those locations. Further, then, this is since before our founders were born, suburbs were designed for this, tactically denatured. Everyone rolls with natures of industries, uses of names that are criminally for an influence, simultaneously delusions wrought. Names like black, like white, black pupils, beer. So, in other words, mescaline, it was reportedly. And in other words, I tried it with the two people, like a Colo and a Demaro, but they had been the ones first that brought up. This was years after they graduated, and that was only to confirm locked in roles. I didn't have no ties to. That's where it was confessed. Then I had never seen Brian Boner before. One time there was a pause with the car there, and someone else was driving his car at that time with Nick Lapera. Because in other words, people on off Two Rod Highway and the conjunctions to it have, through time with the intelligence community, including foreign and domestic military, private tied to it, roles on off the campuses stacking predicate acts. In other words, and readings of law that left that out. In other words, they have roles with overt criminal enterprises, plural, private ones, communicating to little kids how they need to hide life progressions, how they're putting fake things in databases. Really, intelligence and wisdom. The youngest kids have means to discern other just by knowing that Native American rights were sickly distinctly human rights. Volume science. Prevented then and now, sickly distinctly from our own and from people, every individual. Any difference you have, it is employed tactical alterity. It is employed effectively to measure and maintain. It being and having been employed actually then nature's actual uses of it. Proper uses of exceptions, exception nature. Which is necessary because this identity of hyper simultaneous, hyper invisible, that comes with the invisible but still discernible parts of language. It's how we could understand, discern the difference between distinct identities of conjunctions as words, conjunctions as nature, as correlative conjunction, coordinating conjunction. For example, subordinated conjunction. These are three distinct natures of conjunction that are only increasingly valuable. But this is also because the identity of the hypersimultaneous, every identity has a relativity to what is positive and to what is negative simultaneously. Where and how one identity of volume as space/existence is making more of itself through temporary/lasting space nature. This is what English was revealed to teach. before the sciences became criminally foreign influenced, and that having only been self value. No, not to see. This is forgivenesses too, because there was everything that in other words, we have economic treatments that left out the slavery of our founders, who had to counter extort the other founders now, and that's with the Native Americans too. That's semi our founders. With they enabled our founders to be able to semi counter extort the other founders. That's why how slavery was left entrenched. It was here since before our founders' parents were even born. Everyone was measured and maintained. If they weren't entertaining criminally foreign influenced things, right time down to the instant, they would be measured and they would be discerned, and that would be heard. In other words, they maintained qualities of fact, human nature that can't defend themselves and afford defenses of the quality we are that is itself. So as the only one, the same way one identity, we have an identity that works all the different parts of our body, are a whole bunch of different identities that share a semi-nature relationship to our complete identity, which is simultaneously a semi-nature relationship to that identity that is hyper simultaneous, that has us as a species body simultaneously grouped in, and the value of that value slash s of that, it is showing us how it is hyper additional to itself, not as an ism. The ism part of pantheism was more probably and increasingly as there means to demonstrate is more probably having been per how they use what is true always, not denying the slightest exceptions, and not leaving out how it uses exceptions, exception nature as that programming. That is itself what's really going to cause evolution's fruits, gifts, means out of nowhere. It as what is natural, but not as criminal insidiousness. See, this is one of the proofs that lawyers fail, and it's consciously too, to a great extent. And regarding in other words, this is with the branches of government. Our founders left us to teach about how the Constitution got unabridged, how there are uses of words like crimes, criminally foreign influence, uses of right to be. In other words, so all along Route 3, there are people involved on off two route highway with predicate acts on off Trinity College and CCSU and online. And they have criminally foreign influence readings of statutes hiding that in background. See, this is also where and how they self value. You know, this is our job. We have the, stress in the job because they call it stress, whatever. In other words, their time treatments on the phone and stuff like that can't be realized. So then they replace what's actually recorded with fabricated audio and video transcripts. We cannot leave out former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. His roles also with the people out along Connecticut news media, at corners on Church Street and on Weathersfield, and all along that route, all the way, I believe it's 175, right to Central Connecticut State University through Newington through time. And the conjunctions to it, a whole bunch of names that made, I don't know at all, ones that made fake exceptions. I didn't respond to them, and the response they had them to other always too. Someone else is adding to it, but that's also no. Paul Manafort Drive was involved with the intelligence community treatments on off Central CCSU. Paul Manafort Drive. Their story on that. Their Facebook is also involved with Connecticut branches of government that were at locations next to the campuses and on and off the campuses roles of predicate acts, including pretending things were filmed on campuses that weren't filmed at all. They weren't even real because no one's checking. And so the FBI and Hartford courts, for example, New Britain courts, they had roles at West Hartford locations where and how breaching criminally foreign influence roles with them overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and uses of that, foreign and domestic military. What really led up to the 9/11 World Trade Center attack. It was also our side's roles, which is interstates. Since I was a kid, there were people from New York City ties and stuff like that, and Boston ties with Weathersfield's police chiefs, and the names involved here. The name Ray Claw brought up. I don't know if it's them or there's two of them with the name. How many people that have the name too? And then his wife has the same name, Ray too, father. And then in other words, the obfuscating has something to do. They'll have roles with state police and police forms from and the FBI associated and foreign and domestic military associated with Rhode Island, with the Zano family, and with the Claw family, with federal rules of evidence, crime methods, with judges switching names, forging names, with child abusers on the child defender registry, more people associated with Weathersfield police through time, and their rules with identity theft, planting evidence on my street, with class placements, and then they bring up subjects that bring up my neighbors, people around me. I see what they're doing, and I see what they did. And since I was a kid, I could not get a response on paper. They have recorded the intelligence community has roles with the boxing gyms, interstates, and in Connecticut, involved with sick uses of probate courts against elderly homes. Through them, it has nothing to do with that. They're using remotely their time treatments, their substance treatment, their database. No one's checking. Their family members, all the people involved. They're using those locations. Kept needing to hide that at other locations. They're needing to hide this breaching method, the breaching method that modern countries self-value rolls with. That's how we can discern how identity is being used. It's not to say, oh, this person's good or bad. In other words, it's not to leave out where there is more involved. There are other names involved with this. So I don't know the Brian Bonin, and the only exceptions were people with federal rules of evidence as crimes, recorded, confessed, demonstrated roles with his neighbors, with child abuses. There's a Faenza family, and there's a Fazina family, and there's a Steven Stocko. I don't even know, and there are family members of his and neighbors of them, also involved with identity theft, frauds, wire crimes with Weathersfield police, fire departments, people on and off the campuses involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders. With CCSU, Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, has a whole bunch of people tied to Weathersfield Pizza. Then there's like a little new sign and change the name or whatever, also involved with it. So there's this Connecticut, the board of school members. Now this is also with the language narratives, and the narratives regarding again of the FBI and their directives with the Attorney General. How's the Attorney General have time to go overseas and get involved with things like that? Doesn't even know about all the declassified things. And we have the more child offenders and World Trade Center predicate acts roles, predicate acts themed predicate acts in actual roles relative to as the people involved planting evidences, sequence post-dating what had been timely presented to the Ninth Circuit Court next to the World Trade Center attack towers right before the attack. And years leading up to that, people involved with that and spots next to that and on and off the World Trade Center. And roles not just with that. We're proven after the attack was proven. There were post-dated documents that led up to a 2006 district court part of a case /S that was ongoing at the time of my father's death. Weathersfield Police interstates and with the networks. They have Bravo Network Police Respond too for a police chief Simtron for the FBI and for Michael J. White. Also they have with other sports celebrities and profession and people like using mental health as fakes. They're going to leave out details. They're going to get involved with other people's business where they're not supposed to. We need to follow mandated law. And I want a response for the principal child abusers' confessions. And I want a response for the fabricated emails that they made to hide that, enforce that. No, because I caught that first. That was caught off campuses anyway. There's an officer, Jerry Miller, who brought up a Jerry Kerr. There's a Jerry Kerr, and there's a John DeMorrow, who had younger brothers, and cousins involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and people that work with the shopping centers, involved with the intelligence community, and overt criminal enterprises, private ones, foreign and domestic, military, family, doctors. You know, they make fake exception with pretending to know you. So John DeMore was also one of the names with the houses. They were all involved with a Heather Hansen. For him, I never saw them together. He sought me out when I was in middle school, make confessions about his ties to with his brother, with ties to a Mr. Abruzzi, who was a fifth grade teacher of mine, involved with people with a former Mayor Gold and O'Brien family, with Brian Harford Police Forum's family, Weathersfield, involved with Weathersfield Police Chiefs, retired and standing. There's one years ago. I don't even know his name. And then there's a police chief Cintron. And there's one, I don't know if it's the right guy, but he was only for a short time with the transition, so it's also involved too. So it's a whole bunch of people out of the state judicial branch and spots next to it. And they have a Faenza family, a Fazina family, or Faenza family with a Facebook page of a mayor in Cromwell is also, I don't know, they're involved with identity theft. Their syntax about them pretending to be about free speech and to be, not caring about what they say is recorded criminally foreign influence. They have criminally foreign influence uses of Republicans, Democrats, and of the exception nature. And because nature uses it two additional ways as the value of what is sequenced true before the order of the finite. For example, the republic for which we stand now, we know it was founded still criminally foreign influence state, incapable of being of operating by its function of the Constitution unabridged. There are means to observe using the hyper-evidential, consciously criminally foreign influence readings of statutes, a certain type of victim predator that the interbranch are not wanting to be. The differentially criminally foreign influence with the overt criminal enterprises, private ones, insidiousness of logic A through Z relative to this. Other has replaced what nature demonstrates are proper short words, where passions and conviction, where passions get behind, for example, emotions and convictions, pretending honesty. And again, only to prevent equality of fact, cheap nature necessary with exceptions and with a special difference. Because that simultaneously has means to show us the answers. See, but they have been using the lawyers and the in other words, they have been using the locations, all locations with formal treatments of reality, with informal treatments at the same time, because of how they employ distinct identities of criminal insidiousness, including the branches of government. You can legalize and stay legalized slavery in its and they measured the breaching method, measured and maintained what our founders did, not understood by us, because they also measured and maintained means to hurt anyone who was going to use the quality of fact, truth, nature necessary to communicate for them, which it is critical to understand how they had to counter extort the other founders that were entrenched with slavery north and south in the suburbs already designed So it was to cause negative value nature progressions, tactically denatured, hypernative ground, and native ground. And that was sustained before our founders' parents were even born. And to use everyone remotely from through each other, that's why they had those crazy, crazy, crazy laws against everyone. And there were laws about what people could say. And that's still that. In other words, so one of the reasons they keep drugs, they don't make the distinctions between the type of the drugs, or they go after the kids they're putting in jail for it. Their kid, they consciously knew they built New York City to blame other things, others ourselves, and or to measure and hurt who's going to make it safe while they're building it, only capable of being unsafe where it counts, how it counts, for example. But they're going to use the words like safety anyway. Certain type of victim / hyper victim, unfathoming. So that is only increasing to understand the value / at the increasing values of the singular understanding Native American humanities volume science had to resist a sustained imposition against them and their short words consciously, and for reasons that no one could discern, just as the sick bodies that were involved with that as colonies, as colonizing, the companies and the phenomena that control those countries. They're already controlling remotely everyone having entertained the sciences, the human's voice of the human volume science, abridged, tactically abridged, criminally re-engineered, criminally foreign influence. So these people do everything, and then they try to blame it on you at the last second. That was the only time. I think it was 2 times. I don't even know if it was 1 or 2. In other words, I think it was. Anyways, in other words, and then there was that one time that he wasn't even there when they paused in front of the car of the house of I didn't even know it was his house at that time. That was after everyone graduated, and I never saw Nick LaPera on a campus. They tried to make fake exceptions off campus because they had sequence shift. That was when I was a sophomore. When I was a freshman, there were people involved, with wire crimes and with judges and prosecutors and with overt criminal enterprises. When I was in middle school, and then before I was in high school, even. And these are people that were hiding life progressions from roles with the branch of government from my grammar school when I was in grammar school with the overt criminal, same ones, putting fake things. Then I saw the ties. They made ties between the kids. They made instances. There's a Ray Reynolds. They made the only conversation I had with him was one time in in other words, I've never made plans to go with him anywhere. They may try to make illusion even of that. This is where how they bring things before courts that are having been used criminally for and influenced, pretending self-valued roles with a certain type of victim / hyper victim, the same way the overt criminal enterprises and private ones, family members too, are kept needing to use words like families, needing to use motivations, narratives, needing to further what people say. He said, she said. The courts and he said, she said, and lawyers and everyone else are at collusion. This is even reported online. They can't cite their sources online because they're criminally foreign influence readings of statutes, of precedents. The whole thing we're supposed to have precedents for. To get the nature unabridged. So get them onto paper from the forging names and switching names. And intercampuses planting evidences on and off campuses connected. I never saw Brian Bona on a campus in my life. And so, in other words, he knows to an extent it's plausible. He has no clue his roles, where the drugs he sold went, like not ecstasy, mescaline, and what it was used for. And so, neither does the Cololo family. Recorded confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They're also involved with a Lombardo family with federal rules of evidence is crime, with child abuses, and with people in conversations with my teacher, and they started that with the phase thing. And the guy's looking at me. Maybe he wanted me to, because the way they set the class up was weird. They had a Ray Clo there. I was going to go take an Italian class. I was going to take a Latin class one time too. Both times they had the people, the languages people involved also all along that route, 175 Wells Road and Ridge Road. Something to do with the families on that road have roles with wire crime acts and methods with a former mayor, with former mayors. This was also recorded. They affect confessions. So we want to be able to go back and speak. Everyone wants to go back and speak about how we care about other people automatically. We don't even know them. You know, we even look over the stupid things. See, but people are planting evidence at locations still. With what people say and where everyone uses other people's names and the timing of it and their motivations narrative, that's still used remotely by the breaching method. Now, it is, thank God, it is easier to discern where it is the most needed to be countered, overcome, rather, to use Martin Luther King's phrase. That's what Martin Luther King is about, overcoming. And it is about this game because evolution science only feels like a game, /s, when it's real evolution. Otherwise, we sense. See, but now the sense and sensibility has entertained narratives as identity ground industries, where we are hyper additionally the ground's voicings. Now, with those industries that are criminally foreign influence, so as the identities use of identity, all natures of logic that leave out the breaching method, the significance. They pretend it's debatable. Constitution must be unabridged. It means the human volume science. That means if we sense abridgments to Native American rights and means, of course we sense it because before our founders were born, the suburbs were designed. That was with wagons. You know, forget about it. All value treatments. See, identity and value have relativity to positive and negative simultaneously. They measure and maintain. Other spoke for relativity. They measure and maintain. Roles with criminally foreign influence uses of phrases, formally and informally, like conspiracy theory. The uses of words like delusion. They put fake conversations and with people and then pretend that they're calling the person delusional because they're mad at them. Or as people are supposed to just speak as doctors, they have a whole bunch of families that work with the medical locations. They have a phenomenon of roles with the intelligence community. They have acting professors involved with Wethersfield, involved on and off Central Connecticut State University. And there was a Jamie Corona, Kevin Corona. There are people with Hartford Hospital and with campus and with Trinity College, UConn, and Central Connecticut State University, involved also at spots along the South State Highway with them, and like near Town Line Drive. with and on and off parks with identity theft, fraud, slander rolls per people tied to them. I don't even know them. But these are people attaching everyone to fake conversations, and they're pretending it's because we don't like this person, or they're attaching us to fake ties, fake natures, and ties to the people. Identity theft, fraud, slander rules with a Perone family. There's a Tom Perone, there's a Danielle Perone, and there are others in their families and tied to them. Also on and off the campuses within foreign and domestic military and intelligence community. So what they're hiding and pretending to believe in the background with passions and emotions, they're pointing this out. They have New Britain locations associated with the Joseph Dennis, also involved with all kinds of drugs and medicines, crimes and child abuses. With his logic, has no, I don't know. I never saw him with drugs in my life, but Mayor Gold is also involved with this. He has an extent of knowledge of this, and his roles on with that their conjunction to Two Rod Highway, to Hangdog Lane. Hangdog Lane has also a house with a big porch on it that Maria Fazzino confessed, demonstrated, recorded, involved with her, and then on off the state judicial branch office at Central Connecticut State University, and as the people involved with the medical community. Mark Violet repeated her name. I never said when I was a sophomore to me. In other words, they were pretending they knew me. They must have been hanging around when I was in grammar school and middle school. And then I knew them and they made an exception of me knowing them at the end of middle school near my house. It's an identity theft fraud method, slander method. They bring, the people tied to the interbranch involved further with child abusers. There's a Dr. Zeman who also has patients of his, and other doctors and judges involved with crimes with his patients and criminals, including sexual offenders of kids, medical offenders of kids, and judge and various natures of courts. At the same time, collusions with that, switching names, forging names, speaking fake evidences into databases. There was a whole bunch of people with a name. There were a whole bunch of different Smith families associated with a Ray Colo and with a Paul Zano, with the intelligence community, foreign and domestic military forums too, on and off the Rhode Island campuses like Johnson and Wales. And Rhode Island locations as the people involved on off the state judicial branch offices through time. Also with Mike Roberts, fake exceptions pertaining to no me. Also with the Ray Reynolds, who was in my kindergarten class. And there's a Harris family, also on and off Quinnipiac University, involved with a whole bunch of people tied to former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. There's another FBI with the name Ian, who's further involved, and officers on and off involved, all police forms on and off Rocky Hill campuses, further involved with the houses on my street and the streets tied to it through time. And now these are people also exploited at other streets and their ties to there. Now these are people on and off Covington Street since I was a kid. Recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. The intelligence community has roles. But all the branch of government, fire departments tied to them, medical spots tied to them, the exception nature tied to them, even the opinion of logic A through D, because it gets in the way. When you're trying to talk about specific acts, predicate acts, child abuses acts, people jump in with pretending people have drug problems because that's what they've been doing in the background. They've been doing this through time. So control your mind. And get them on paper because they're lying about my passions, emotions, and those of my motivation. They're pretending because they already recorded themselves using evidences and their motivations, where they're not just self-evaluating for money and things like that. The lawyers and stuff like that, they're really needing to hide their actually recorded natures from actually recorded nature, as is actually discernibly recorded. But see, we are prevented this quality of fact treatment nature offensively by the people that are types of experts. They employed all these types of experts against things that are in the furtherance of them. per uses of those locations, for example, of those databases. That's one of the things commonly that rolls with this are not distinctly with the interbranch overt criminal enterprises and private ones is they have data stacking databases and sequence shifts. Those are also one of the things non-distinctly that is involved here in their motivations narratives. So please get them onto paper because they have a whole bunch of people with the name Dylan also further on my street as one of the ones I know the names of, tied to the ones with that we can find the names of because they're tied to this Dr. Zeman. And the guy who brought up, there's a guy who brought up the name Chet Casper. There's a Casper family. I don't know his daughter's name, but she probably has a husband's last name now. I don't know the father's name, but the father is also too. In other words, and involved with a Robert Heimgartner, who's involved also with the Debbie Gold. And there's like a Jewish themed and psycho other types of religious themes, like the psycho part of Catholicism. Those psycho people, they're criminally foreign influence roles with that identity theft, fraud, slander roles. They're with people. These are federal evidence is crime method roles. These are people that call the police, even when they're a truthster, when there is exceptions, they're using criminally foreign influence. In other words, through time, because they're putting fake things. Then they have to put more and more fake conversations with police that don't even know people. They have to pretend such as adults because they did such when they were a kid. They attached a whole bunch of kids to fake conversations, and I never had communication because they planted the evidence. They asked people questions about things they brought up, and they're hiding their motivations with that because they're using them to hide the life progressions and pretending. In other words, they're pretending there's legitimate descriptions of our relationships to other kids and their perceptions of us. These are people. In other words, these are a whole bunch of different motivations you can see discern where and how they brought in the off campuses, overt criminal enterprises, and private ones with the youngest kids, and then connected to the people who did that with all the campuses I went to, and with names next to them also involved with the confessions at the locations. Then they pretend to know you. So in other words, 3 times I was forced for mental evaluation. 2 times they made up things totally to cover what I caught them doing the first time, which is faking conversations with me as people involved on my location before there was any incident. Well, and I've been asking calmly to get a name on paper since I was a kid with writing because of this. Everyone's leaving out the overt criminal enterprise and the private ones with the interbranch. So get them on paper now. Let's go. Let's go. Come on. You guys, get me heard by the judges. Get this Judge Napolitano, please. Judge Napolitano. You let them get Weathersfield interbranch with the New Britain Superior Court and the Hartford courts onto paper regarding the confessions regarding the principal child abusers campus and the uses of West Hartford locations before the World Trade Center attack, and then since it, because they have a whole bunch of people from Central Connecticut State University involved with Hartford locations and West Hartford locations and names next to schools involved with child abuses and pretending to be against that stuff. At the same time, it's too long. Boxing is strong. Fake branches break. I shouldn't have to beg so long because you guys are staying this between the campuses now. You're making it worse, so there's no excuses. Get them on paper now. There's no excuse. They know that they can't be trusted because they fabricated audio and video. The police, so they're not going to get away with that excuse. Pretend I have to go in there and talk to them. They're going to do it all on paper now, and they're going to fix the fake news, the news predicate acts. We're going to refer to it as news predicate acts. I'm not quoting President Trump, who's telling the truth. Fake news. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm on YouTube. Sorry. Thank you.